My name is Stella Muntali. I work at the Warren Youth Project. The Warren Youth Project is an organisation that's been running for a long time now, 30 years, and we are a project that empowers young people to have a voice and have a say on the matters, on the issues that matter to them. We are here today with a guest, Simon Gawthorpe, who has come from Humberside Police, and we're looking at the topic of racial stereotypes. Just to begin, I'd just like to go around and do a quick round of introductions so that we know where people are from, how old you are, and just a little bit about yourself, if that's okay.
Hello, my name's Connor. I'm 21 from Hull, and I come to the Warren as a volunteer for numerous of reasons, for needing help with food parcels, etc.
Hi, my name's Chloe. I am from Hull. I'm 18. I come here for the help with food parcels and for CVs and stuff like that, basically.
Hi, my name's Melek. I'm 18 and I'm Turkish, and I come to Warren for help.
Hi, my name is Phoenix. I'm Egyptian. I'm 19. All right, I came here for help. Actually, they are all helping us.
Thanks, Stella. So my name's Simon Gawthorpe. I'm a Detective Superintendant from Humberside Police. So my day job is basically managing investigations into crime for Hull and for East Riding as well. And then my other area of responsibility, if you like, is around the way that Humberside Police uses stop and search. So I sort of set the strategy and the policy and hopefully make sure that we use stop and search legitimately and properly out there on the streets.
That is everybody introduced to the group. We're all based at the Warren today for the recording of this podcast. And today we're looking at stereotypes and assumptions around the topic of stop and search and racial stereotypes. Today, we're just looking to share stories, share experiences that are based on, real life. And we're looking to discuss about the myths of stop and search, how people feel individually, how it's affected them, and basically how we feel that we could move forward with this topic. If there's anything that we feel that we need to move forward about. Just to get the conversation started, the first question that I'd like to put out to young people is, do you feel that stop and search is disproportionate to individuals who are from ethnic minorities? So if you are from a different ethnic minority, do you feel that you're more likely to be stopped and searched?
So I don't think so that there's a reason to stop me because I'm from a different country, something else, because of my outfit. That's not a reason. All right. I didn't care about this topic till I told Stella about it. All right. I thought that's normal here. And she told me that's not normal. They can't stop you and search you.
Okay, so so you're saying, Phoenix, that you feel you were stopped and searched, not only because you're from an ethnic minority, but because of what you were wearing?
Actually, they stopped me, all right, and started to search me, search my pocket, search my wallet. They took out the money from it, and it was about 40 quid, and he gave it to me again. He asked me before, right, from where this money? I told them from the bank, from the Home Office, right? I told them that I'm an asylum seeker here, and I'm getting support from the Home Office. And he told me, all right. And he pulled the money back and gave me the wallet. He told me, go away.
Simon, would you like to explain what the usual protocol should be when an individual is stopped and searched?
Yeah, of course. So one of the things that we're really clear with about officers, because it's what the law says they must do, is that officers must have a really strong set of what we call reasonable grounds. It's just another word for reasons, really. A really strong set of reasons about why they're going to stop and search somebody. So there are examples of people being searched purely because there might be a smell of cannabis near to where they're sat or where they're walking. There are examples of people in the past who've been stopped and searched just because they are known to have a criminal background, for example. There are examples, sadly, nationally, of people being searched just because of the colour of their skin, their ethnic background, their age, their sex. There's all sorts of reasons in the past why people have been stopped and searched inappropriately. We're really clear with our officers that in order to decide or go through that thought process of whether you are going to stop and search somebody or not, they've got to start right at the beginning and have a really clear set of grounds about why they're going to do it. So those grounds could be based on a number of factors. They could be based on the way that somebody presents, the way they act when the police officer first sees them, when the police officer first speaks to them. It could be about their explanation of why they're in a particular place at a particular time. It could be because, a member of the public has rung the police to say they've seen somebody doing something illegal. We get reports from members of the public saying there's a guy on a street corner who's got a knife. There's a lady on down the street who's just been in a shop and perhaps stolen something from that shop. But they have to be really sort of nailed on clear grounds. And just to reiterate, the colour of somebody's skin, their age, just the fact they're in a place at a certain time is definitely not enough. The officer, when they first stop and search or decide to stop and search somebody and approach them and start speaking to them, they have to go through a set of criteria, if you like. They've got to tell the young person about, and we have a set process that we go through to allow them to give that information. So they have to tell the person that they're a police officer. If they are in a uniform, that's fine. If they're not in uniform, they have to offer to show the person their warrant card, so the badge that says that's the back of it, not the front, that says the fact that they're a police officer. They have to explain those grounds for those reasons why they're going to search somebody. They also have to explain what they're expecting to find, because the way the law's written, as a police officer, I've almost got to anticipate or expect that I'm going to find what I'm looking for. I can't just search because I think it might be there. They have to tell the person that they're entitled to a copy of the record afterwards, so they have to make a written record of the search. They have to talk about what power it is in law that they're using to search them. And then finally, they have to tell them that they are being detained for the purposes of a search. So the law does allow us to use force if we have to. Thankfully, we don't have to very often.
And Phoenix, this isn't an open case for you anymore. This is something that happened in the past. Could you just explain when and where this happened for me, please?
By McDonald's about 2 weeks, I think.
Yes, it was a number of months ago now, wasn't it? And it was an experience that you had, and we did obviously support you in trying to find out the sort of background and what had happened, and what we could do to challenge it. And I think that would sort of lead me on to the next question as well, with what you said, Simon, about stop and searches are based on a variety of different reasons, and it should never be based on purely what you look like or where you come from. But one of the other reasons that you can be stopped and searched is previous involvement in crime.
Basically, I'd like to start it off with I've been stopped and searched multiple times for, sometimes maybe I have looked dodgy or doing something that maybe I shouldn't have been, but in this case I haven't been. I was stood outside Queen's Garden at a bus stop with my brother, and because of my previous involvement with crime, the police have said that they're looking for a knife or a screwdriver in my possession, and they detained me, and basically they just told me that that's what they're looking for, but they didn't give me any reasons or grounds of why they was looking for that on me. I felt like it was wrong because I asked for a copy of what they was searching for, and they said that they would send it through email and never did. And they didn't give me any plausible grounds for why they thought it was me who had the weapons. So I think that's pretty unfair, but it's not because of minority or my race, it's on how my past was. And it shouldn't be judged on my past, it should be judged on how I am in my present.
That's a really valid point, that, Connor, and thank you very much. And like you say, it wasn't because of your skin colour that you were stopped, but you do feel that this is continuing because of your previous involvement in crime. I think maybe the next question I'd like to ask is, in terms of a criminal background, how long do you have to not be involved in crime before the police will stop looking at you as if you are automatically involved based on your criminal record? Is there a period of time, Simon, between, your last offence, when that sort of, I don't know if it's an indicator or sort of an alert that comes up for previous offenders, but how long do you have to not be involved in crime for that to stop taking place? Or is this possibly something that Connor's going to experience for the rest of his life?
Yes, I mean, the short answer to this is that there is no period defined, and the reason there isn't a period defined is because what Connor's described there, that shouldn't be a ground to search you, Connor. That shouldn't be a reason for searching you. But on a practical level, there are always occasions where a police officer's knowledge of an individual, of a person, might start to show some bias or some difference in decision making. So if I could just talk through an example, if we'd had a report from a member of the public in Queen's Gardens that there was a male, carrying a knife or a screwdriver, for example, and that member of the public gave a description of, a lad looks about 20, 21 years old in a blue baseball cap, say, for example, as you are today, then I would say then that officer would be entitled, if you're stood at that bus stop nearby and you match that description, to at least start a conversation with you. I'm not saying they should definitely search you, but to at least start a conversation with you about, where have you been? Have you been in Queen's Gardens? Have you got anything on you that you shouldn't have, for example? And through that conversation, they might then decide that they've got sufficient grounds to search you. But what they must always do is they must always tell you exactly why they're searching you. And your point about a copy of the record, well, some years ago we used to have booklets that police officers would carry around, and they would write the form out with a pen at the time. Now, obviously, in the golden days of technology, it's all done on a mobile telephone that they submit, and then you're entitled either to an email copy of the receipt, or you can go into a police station and ask for a copy of that search record. And you can do that at any point. The law says we have to keep those for 12 months. So any time from 12 months from the date you're searched, you should be entitled to a copy of that form. So yeah, I mean, to answer your original question, so there is no time frame, because really we shouldn't be searching based on somebody's involvement in criminality in the past. It might be a factor that's taken into account with a whole load of other reasons, but it should definitely not be the sole reason for searching you.
And I think that's why it's really important that we have discussions such as this, because then obviously these experiences come to the forefront, and then, the more that we communicate this with police officers, then they're more aware of, of what's going on, basically. They have a very different perspective out doing their job to the people that are experiencing this. So we've heard from Phoenix and Connor about their personal experiences of stop and search, and they're both male. I'd just like to sort of put the question out there to both Connor and Phoenix to start with. Do you feel that you're more likely to be stopped and searched, not just on your race or your previous involvement in crime, or the way you look or anything like that, but do you feel like you're more likely to experience this because you're male?
So I don't think so that it must be a male to stop and search him. It doesn't matter. But they stopped me because of my outfit. All right, they thought I'm a drug dealer because of my outfit, and they didn't take even my name. They did nothing. I think they been bored or something. They want to do anything. All right, so they stopped me.
I believe that. I don't think it's because I'm male, because as my partner Chloe was with me at the times of me being stop and search, she's been stop and search because she was literally stood next to me. So that's in my point, that's not fair. It's not just about males. It's who the police officer thinks he's got the right to do it.
Chloe, so Connor's just mentioned that you have also been searched when you've been with Connor. First of all, I'll just ask you two questions. The first question: have you ever been stopped and searched because it's yourself that they were looking for whilst you were just on your own? And why do you feel that they've involved you in the search with Connor?
I have never been stopped without Connor being there. I've not got a criminal record or out like that. But when I have been with Connor, I think it's because of the way he dresses. He doesn't exactly look. But I don't think I'd be stopped if Connor wasn't there. They won't blink an eye at me. But because I'm with Connor, they feel like I'm connected into the things that he does, because we're a couple. We're partners in crime. If he does it, I do it. If I do something, he'd do it.
As a female of Turkish origin, have you ever been stopped and searched by the police at all?
No, I haven't.
And I understand, Melek, that you have aspirations and you're looking to maybe progress into the police force. From hearing today's experiences, how do you feel it will impact how you possibly conduct yourself as a police officer if you go down that career route?
I'm not sure, but I don't think it's right to stop someone and search them because of their race or what they're wearing.
So, I mean, in terms of what we can do in the future, what do people think that we should be, looking at, and how do you think we can better control, or monitor how police officers are conducting stop and search? And I know as members of the public and as young people, it's not up to ourselves to do that. So I suppose, Simon, I'll direct this one to you. Are there any actions or future strategies in place where we are looking to improve the stop and search procedures in the future?
First of all, if you find yourself in a position where you are being stop and searched, or if your partner is, or a friend or a loved one, my advice would be to stay calm, unless there's a very exceptional set of circumstances, to let the encounter play out, because you're not going to get anywhere at the time by, getting upset, aggressive. The last thing you want to do is find yourself, in handcuffs because you've, got too upset about the fact that you're being searched when you feel it shouldn't be. Then, onwards for that, I am always constantly looking for and asking for feedback about stop and search from communities. And bear in mind that I cover Hull and East Riding, but for stop and search, all of the South Bank of the Humber as well. We have a scrutiny panel that is a group of people managed by an independent body called the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office, which you may or may not have heard of, but their job is to scrutinise the way we use stop and search, to look at it, to be critical about it, to give us feedback about when we're using it well, but also when we're not using it well. We have links on our website for you to provide feedback. You can provide the feedback yourself and give your name. You can provide it anonymously if you want to. And you can tell us about your experience, your family, friends' experience of stop and search. Every single one of those bits of feedback that I get, I promise you, I sit down, I look at, and I try and do something with. Phoenix and I spoke a while ago about his encounter outside McDonald's. I've done some work as best I can to try and understand what went on that occasion. I guess I'm here to tell you that I think we fell below the standard on that occasion. Based on what Phoenix says in his encounter of what happened, that was not right. It shouldn't have happened in that way. So, that I hope is an example that we are trying to learn from our mistakes. If you look at last year, we searched just short 6,000 people across our police force. Now, when you put that into the context of us having around about 2,000 police officers working in those 4 areas that I described a minute ago, that's only 3 searches per year per officer. But still, that's 6,000 times we can get it right, or it's 6,000 times that we can get it wrong. And my job, obviously, is to make sure that we get as many of those right as we can. Policing in the UK is fairly honest. I think that we don't always get it right. There is a lot of national narrative. If you go and speak to people about this, particularly young people, people of colour in London, they will give you often very strong views about the way that stop and search is used in some of those communities. My job is to make sure that we make the best of it that we can in Humberside.
Well, in my opinion, I believe that because as we had our hate crime talk a few weeks ago, it made me put into perspective of how in roughly the 60s and 70s, how the police officers would be able to knock on your front door and you'd be able to chat like you was friends. But now I feel like when I see a police officer, even when I've done nothing wrong, I feel scared. And I think that's not right. So
I don't think so that all of them like this. I don't care about police. If they walk and I'm doing nothing, I don't be scared actually. But the way that they searching people is really rude. Their hands in your pocket directly. They're not asking you before. Yeah, and that's quite bad.
I do feel like I'd be able to contact them because not all police officers are the same. Some of them are understanding. I've actually met a couple recently who are very understanding. They don't approach aggressively. They're very nice. But then at some degree, I do agree with Connor. Some of them, the way they stare you down while you're just walking down the street, or they look at you like you've always done something wrong when you're just going off on your day. I don't think it's right.
And Melek, how do you feel about joining the police in the future based on your experiences today? Would you say that you still feel the same and that's a career that you're looking to go into? Or do you think that this is something that has made you think a little bit more?
It has made me think a little bit more, but I still want to join the police force, but I do have negative with the police, but I still want to be with them.
We expect police officers to almost have a sort of superhuman ability to get everything right and get everything perfect. And I think that's what's important, is that we know that, things might not always go to plan. But I think that, and as long as young people know what their rights are, then they know how to direct officers almost, even when they are involved in that stop and search. As Simon said, we are able to give feedback by getting involved in meetings and things like that. Do people think it's a good idea to get involved in community meetings in order to keep sharing their experiences? Yeah, I can see everybody nodding there. Simon, how do young people go about joining a panel, or how do they find out what the complaints procedure is?
Yeah, so in terms of the scrutiny panel, it's independent of the police for a good reason, because obviously we shouldn't be marking our own homework, so to speak, in terms of stop and search or the other things that panel looks at. There's information on our website, but there's also information on the Office of Police and Crime Commissioner's website. That panel is actually just being redesigned at the moment. So now is quite a good time to try and get involved with that. You know, for anybody who doesn't particularly want to go online and general feedback, to again via our website, you know, you can pick up the phone and ring 101 and either make a complaint, or at the other end of the spectrum, give some positive feedback if you've had an encounter with a police officer that you were particularly happy with, or you thought they were good, or you wanted to give them some. The complaints process is really clear. You are entitled to make a complaint about stop and search if you have been directly affected by it. So if you take, for example, Chloe and Connor's example, Connor, you could make a complaint if you've been stop and searched and you're not happy with the way that it was done. But Chloe, you could also make a complaint if you were there and you were part of it and it had an impact on you as well. So just remember that it's not always about the person being searched. It can be the people that are around you as well. Make no mistake about it, stop and search is a intrusive bit of legislation. So Phoenix, as you mentioned, the thought, especially during COVID, of course, of another human being putting their hands on you, putting their hands in your pockets, looking through your wallet, all of that stuff, we should take really seriously, because it is a really big step to take, to put your hands on another person. You know, police officers, because of the nature of what we do, we're quite used to putting our hands on other people, you know, through arresting them, sometimes through saving people that are trying to jump in front of cars, or, you know, in crisis, in mental health crisis, whatever it might be. But we can't forget that for the public that we're doing that to, it can be really impactful.
I just wanted to also ask one more question in terms of, we know what we can do following the stop and search and after this event has happened. And we see so much more now with social media. A lot of people's personal footage is going around on the internet of different circumstances when they've been involved in, for example, a stop and search. Do you have a right to record your experience at the time as it's happening?
Through your mobile phone or whatever device you've got with you, you are entitled to record what is going on in a public place, in effect. So there have been some examples of police officers nationally, not in Humberside, but trying to take mobile phones off people, for example, when they're filming in a public place. That's not right, and there is quite strong guidance that we send out to our officers in particular on that very subject. So yeah, you are entitled to film. If you're going to do that, again, in the interest of making sure that things don't escalate too much, I would suggest that you do it in a calm and appropriate manner. You don't try and antagonise or wind up the police officers or anybody else that's there, for that matter, because that's when I see things escalating sometimes beyond where they really needed to be.
I think that we shouldn't just be giving out the bad feedback. We should give some positive feedback so that the police understand what they are doing bad and what they are doing good on. So I believe that, as we're saying, the bad things towards the racial stereotypes and stuff like that's the bad sides, but it's the good side is they're still doing the job and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing to get the criminals off the streets. So
I'm just going to sort of wrap up basically what we've been talking about today. And please, if anybody, wants to add anything, then go ahead. I think what we've established is that stop and search is an intrusive process, but it is needed in some circumstances for the police to be able to move forward with investigations. And at the end of the day, they do only have descriptions to go off, but we have established that description should fit the actual person, and it shouldn't be an open description of, their mixed race, that's a black man, or, it's simply just a boy with a blue baseball cap. There has to be an accumulating bit of evidence that sort of leads the police officer to suspect that person. And when they do suspect that person, that they should be, having a general conversation with them, and then obviously going with everything else that's fallen into place as to whether they go ahead with that stop and search. We've looked at about how stop and search should be taken seriously. However, it should be conducted in a respectful manner. So that just sort of leads me on, starting a conversation with somebody, not just going up and giving them no explanation and then just basically putting them into handcuffs before explaining why they're being detained or why they're being handcuffed. Simon's touched on how it's really important that people stay calm if this experience happens to them, and that they're communicating clearly, so that things aren't escalating, and that people are able to access their rights via the police website, and they do have a right to record if they feel that that's what they need to do to protect themselves. Well, I'd just like to thank everybody for coming today and taking part. It's been an amazing experience to hear about all of your stories. I'd just like to thank you all very much for getting in touch, and thank you.